Welcome back to the Mayberry Ranch Uncensored podcast, where today we are going to be getting into abortion. And these videos that you are about to see are going to be very disturbing, but I ask each and every one of you to watch till the very end because I can assure you this, you will come out of this a completely different person.
You will come out of this a completely different person if you allow yourself to see the total gravity of this situation. And the situation that we're referring to specifically is abortions for any reason. We're not going to sit here and dictate and determine what should or shouldn't be allowed, and we don't even believe that this should be a thing that governments are supposed to fix. This is something that should be societally enforced. And when you see the numbers in the videos for yourself, there's a very clear answer, and the answer is this needs to stop. It's clear to see that technology changed our world in ways that we did not foresee. From the old ways of radios and newspapers to the new ways of televisions, computers, and phones, we have found ourselves more separated and alone than ever before. And nothing is scarier than the hive mind of social media promoting celebrities who do not care about you or your well-being.
I am so sick and tired of old men. Men in general, sorry. But old ones, especially. Shut the up about our body! Oh my God! Shut the up, like. And I have to be honest with you that when they made shit a law, I almost didn't want to do this show. So, because I wanted to punish this place for allowing that to happen here. But then I remembered that it's you guys that are the victims, and you deserve everything in the world. And we need to tell them to shut the up. Do this. My body, my choice. Let's go. Awesome. Keep them up there. Someone's in the
We get requests a lot for fetal tissue because we had two levels of invoicing for them. The way we had it worded is per consent, because the consent process was the administrative part that we had to do. And then we had an overall administrative fee for basically working it into the clinics themselves. And at the time, per consent was $25. Mm-hmm. And that also covered if a patient consented to be in the study and then for whatever reason we didn't get a sample or she changed her mind, because I see I didn't do that budget. It was existed when I got here. So there's probably some situations that somebody would consent and then just not.
Right.
We didn't get a sample, or she changed her mind, or something happened to the specimen. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but yeah, because we technically can't. Ethically, I don't think they were. Based on what I'm reading here, I think it's paying for the specimen itself.
Right.
That
I mean,
language
on paper,
yes.
it's got to
Yeah.
be massaged a little.
Yes. So the consent process is what is unique to the visit. It's consenting the patient.
Right.
So,
Now, obviously, I mean, we don't want to end up paying for material that we can't use.
Obviously,
And now it might be if so if there's a certain like consent fee and then something else that represents the specimens.
I think definitely a a la carte approach would be the best.
How we say that, how
Yes, how we frame it,
Yeah.
I think is important too. That we're not altering anything, and it's clear that we're not altering anything. Even if the procedure itself, there's a modification in how they do it, it's still the same procedure, but we're doing it in a way that we
An
preserve
adjustment.
the integrity of the specimen. I think is something that we can definitely discuss that with Trom.
Yeah, it sounds like what will probably happen is we can kind of give you our our needs and sort of how in our according to our budgeting and our practical use, kind of what how we look at everything, and then if you guys can kind of translate that based on your experience, translate it into something that looks good on paper.
Yeah.
right. I just don't want to turn into a situation that it's not financially beneficial for you.
Yeah, and I'll take you up on that. I'll take you up on that. We definitely want to do that because that's what staff and management need to see, that we're not underwriting any project. And I go to great efforts to demonstrate what the actual cost is for us to whomever asks, and then this is what is budgeted. So they know, okay, yes, you're covering costs, there's margin that's covering overhead or whatever we need to make sure that everything is covered.
And so when we're coming in and making it beneficial to you financially, you can frame it so that that's
Yes,
okay.
that's
Because that's how we're going to keep you happy,
Yes,
right?
yes.
To make sure that financially
Yes.
you're growing your clinic, and however you need to say that, frame it on the other end.
yes.
Okay.
If we alter our process and we are able to obtain intact fetal cadavers, then we can make it part of the budget that any dissections are this, and splitting the specimens into different shipments is this. I mean, it's all just a matter of line items. Everything. CNS, brain, kidney, thymus, liver, spleen, femur, bone marrow, hematopoietic stem cells from 14 to 22 weeks. Well, it would make me very happy for us to finish up what we need to do, and I can put you in contact with them. Oh, and I was wrong. They want 120.
120.
Uh-huh.
This is huge. This is the budget you said was in Sultan, or no? They never got back to you about
They
the.
never got back to me. Budget was not. I mean, we never got to budget. I sent him a contract that had some budget numbers in it, and I said, this is from my previous project. I think the per item thing works a little better just because we can see how much we can get out of it. Because if you have someone in a really anti-state that's going to be doing this for you, they're probably going to get caught.
about 20, anywhere between 18 on a light day, but up to 25 patients a day. Obviously, not all in the gestational age that you're
Right.
interested in. But you want mostly over 14s?
Yeah, yeah. You can kind of play with that lower range, I think, if the specimens are coming out more intact. And so that, I mean, I guess we'll kind of get a first-hand look at that today, later on. How many procedures are scheduled?
Can I interrupt
yeah.
just right there when you're talking about an intact specimen? So how many of those do you see?
An intact
Yeah,
specimen?
within. So what's your volume on an average Tuesday?
With just second tries?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe 5, so anywhere as low as 3 up to 7.
Okay. All right, and so intact. Can you
Intact,
judge?
so we do basically D&Es. Intact is probably less than 10%.
Less than 10%.
Sometimes, if someone delivers before we are able to see them for procedure, then we are intact.
Uh-huh. But you'll
That's
never
not
know.
what we go for.
Yeah,
We try
yeah.
for that to not happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Sometimes, if someone delivers before we are able to see them for procedure, then we are intact.
Uh-huh. So obviously we want product that we can use.
Yep.
That's, and,
I think that's probably the biggest thing is that
Yeah.
we want to avoid paying for material that we're not going to be able to process and
Right.
use and send to researchers. So if there's, we certainly see a difference between, it makes a big difference to us if there's a case that is, so mangled we can't even get like a shred of, piece of liver out of it versus something that we can get, we can get liver, thymus, pancreas, and neural tissue.
So
Obviously that second
Sorry.
case is a lot more,
Yeah.
sorry, no, I didn't mean
so
to.
compensation could be specific to the specimen.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think then we would just, I think for us, we would need criteria
Yeah, clear criteria.
for what makes something
Usable or
usable.
Okay.
Right.
And even if you have pictures, because I think some of it is
Right.
visual, at least at this level.
Mhm.
Right.
Because we're not looking at things under the microscope too to see if
Right.
it's feasible or not.
Right.
So this is going to be naked eye determination, and so those kinds of things of what you're looking for. Obviously, you get trained. I don't know if I've ever seen a thymus, but maybe I haven't. I don't know. I know I've seen livers, I've seen stomachs, I've seen plenty of neural tissue. We usually you can see the whole brain usually come out.
Uh-huh.
When you get to 17, 18 weeks, because we do some of those, and that's when you're doing a lot more of the D&E, and you might get larger.
Mhm.
So that's where we'd have to do a little bit of training with the providers on making sure they didn't crush
Mm-hmm.
or were able to.
So it's a matter of just training, it sounds like, to a provider.
I think so. It's hard to know how their
Yeah.
specimens come out right now, because it's not like we've ever been looking.
Yeah.
If we will.
Right, it's not your, yeah.
We haven't been, so it's, we have to kind of see the baseline of how things are getting extracted now, and then
Right.
see if we could do any work with them to maybe be a little bit more gentle.
Right.
So I feel like if you're talking to other Planned Parenthoods, we sort of all have to be on the same page.
Right.
Almost to the point where we have to disclose to each other that we're all doing this. So if anyone gets
Interesting.
called out or runs with it, that we're all like, oh, I didn't know you were doing this. Oh, I'm doing this too. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
we have to be. I think we have to be coordinated with each
To
other.
keep the story straight.
Yeah.
almost.
Well, and to make sure that we're all saying the same thing,
Right.
and that the CEOs are all saying the same thing.
Right. I think the resistance that I have felt is from people that, yes, they want to do it, but they don't understand that doing it right can be easy, just with getting the attorneys on board, having, we all know that, for example, compensation. I want to come in and pay you top dollar because I know what you're going to be facing, and I want you to be happy. I want to make sure our suppliers are happy. So compensation, okay, your cost is negligent. So it could look like we're paying you for
Right.
specimens. So let's talk about it correctly.
Mhm.
We all know that, yes, that's what we're
Sort of
doing.
processing and time. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yes, I am paying you, but how we're talking about it out there in the public square.
Are the other Planned Parenthoods doing this through research, or are they just doing it as a standalone contract?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though we're doing it through research, if it comes out that someone else is just doing it as a business sort of venture, it's a different spin on it.
So how could you imagine that being handled if that is?
We'd have to, that's where, I mean, I'd have to talk to Deb and see who else was involved, and get us all together. I think Deb could probably spearhead something, so it'd sort of be on the tail end of your conversations where you actually have contracts in place.
Are we talking about Deb Nucatola or Deb Vanderhei? Nucatola, because so I feel like she has said before that they decided at national that research was overkill for tissue procurement because it's not really research, it's just collecting tissue, so there's no study.
Putting it under the research gives us a little bit of a little overhang sort of over the whole thing.
It makes it look better. Okay.
Yeah, I mean publicly I think it makes a lot more sense for it to be in the research vein than as a
Right, it's how we
business
talk
venture.
about it. Yeah, it's how we talk about it.
So even though they don't want to do it, and I may need to call research and Deb and just kind of shake this out because I do want the other Planned Parenthood, I want us all to be making the same decision. So if we all decide that we're going to do it outside of research, then we do it outside of research. But if we all decide we're going to do it under research, that we have a different path, that we know that we're all registering and doing the same thing. Again, it's just that cohesive bond, I think.
So you really think there should almost be a national policy and protocol for how Planned Parenthood affiliates do tissue
We
procurement?
can't, just because we're all so different.
Oh.
But we have to know who else is doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have someone in a really anti-state that's going to be doing this for you, they're probably going to get caught.
How confident are you with your attorneys, the work that you've seen? They're building many layers so that they are making it difficult.
He's got it figured out that he knows that even if, because we talked to him in the beginning, we were like, we don't want to get called on, selling beetle parts across.
Neither do we.
states. You know what I mean? Like no one wants to get
Right, so how do we protect ourselves
from that?
And you feel confident that they're building those layers and
I'm confident that our legal will make sure that we are not put in that situation.
Was that crack? Was that just the little bits of the skull?
So Sometimes I just want to see one leg, a foot.
That's the heart.
I think so, right?
Yeah.
Here's the heart.
Everyone's
I
trying to
think-
get in on it.
My fingers will smush it if I try to.
You're trying to pick it
The
up.
heart is
You
right
found
there.
heart over there.
So would you call that intact?
These are intact
Yeah,
kidneys,
okay.
yes. If somebody needed.
Because if I looked at that, I'd be like, that's good to go.
Oh yeah.
That's like 21.
Yeah.
5 stars.
There was like 3 or 4 samples we could have taken out of the 11.6, so that would be, if we were doing like, 50 to 75 per specimen, that would be like 200, 300, right? And we'd be comfortable with that. But like, so it's like stuff like this, like we don't want to do like just a flat fee of like 200 and then, it's like.
No, and I think the per item thing works a little better just because we can see how much we can get out of it. So what do they want
That's
brain?
fascinating.
What do they do with
Yeah,
it?
no. So brain, what you can do is with brain they.
Do people do stuff with eyeballs?
Oh yeah. Although eyeballs, they generally want more developed than this. And the cow, there was first there was brain in here.
Blasted out.
When they got blasted out with the water.
Well, a lot of times, especially with the second tries, is we won't even put water because it's so big. You can just put your hand in there and pick out
Right,
the
and
parts.
just pick it up.
So I don't think they would be as war torn.
Yeah. War torn. Oh dear.
Well, here's some organs for you. They're all attached. Here's the
Really?
stomach.
Oops, sorry. Leave both of you.
Kidney. Heart. It's the stomach.
Yeah.
A heart. Kidney and adrenal. I don't know what else is in there. Tiny.
Arms. I don't see the legs. Did you see any legs?
I didn't really look, but
Oh, there's some. Oh,
There you
they
go.
are.
Yep. We got all of them right
And
there.
another.
Dr. Levatino is a board-certified obstetrician gynecologist. Over the course of his career, Dr. Levatino has practiced obstetrics and gynecology in both private and university settings, including as an associate professor of OB/GYN at the Albany Medical College. And Dr. Levatino, we'll begin with you. Welcome.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. I only have 5 minutes, so I'm going to get right to it. Second trimester D&E abortions performed between roughly 14 and 24 weeks of gestation. Your patient today is 17 years old. She's 22 weeks pregnant. Her baby is the length of your hand plus a couple of inches. And she's been feeling her baby kick for the last several weeks, but she's asleep on an operating room table. You walk into that operating room scrubbed and gowned, and after removing laminaria, you introduce a suction catheter into the uterus. This is a 14 French suction catheter. If she were 12 weeks pregnant or less, basically the width of your hand or smaller, you could basically do the entire procedure with this. But babies this big don't fit through catheters this size. After suctioning the amniotic fluid out from around the baby, you introduce an instrument called a Sofer clamp. It's about 13 inches long. It's made of stainless steel. The business end of this clamp is about 2.5 inches long and 1/2 inch wide. There are rows of sharp teeth. This is a grasping instrument, and when it gets a hold of something, it does not let go. A D&E procedure is a blind abortion, so picture yourself introducing this and grabbing anything you can blindly and pull, and I do mean hard, and out pops a leg about that big, which you put down on the table next to you. Reach in again, pull out an arm about the same length, which you put down on the table next to you, and use this instrument again and again to tear out the spine, the intestines, the heart and lungs. Head on the baby that size is about the size of a large plum. Can't see it, but you pretty good idea you've got it if you've got your instrument around something and your fingers are spread about as far as they go. You know you did it right if you crush down on the instrument and white material runs out of the cervix. That was the baby's brains. Then you could pull out skull pieces. And you have a day like I had a lot of times, sometimes a little face comes back and stares back at you. Congratulations, you just successfully performed a second trimester D&E abortion.
One more question, Dr. Levatino. Why did you end your practice of doing abortions?
I did over 1,200 abortions over a 4-year period in private practice, not counting the ones that I did during my training. I met my wife during my first year of training at Albany Medical Center. We got married about a year later and found that we had an infertility problem. After years of failed infertility treatment and several years trying to adopt a child, we were blessed with adopting a little girl that we named Heather in August of 1978. As sometimes happens in those situations, my wife got pregnant the very next month, and we had 2 children 10 months apart. 2 months short of my daughter Heather's 6th birthday, she was killed in an auto accident and literally died in her arms in the back of an ambulance. Anyone who has children might think they have some idea of what that feels like, but unless you've been through it yourself, you have no idea whatsoever. I know people find it hard to believe, but what do you do after disaster? You bury your child and then you go back to your life. And I don't remember exactly how long it was after my daughter died that I showed up at Albany Medical Center OR number 9 to perform my first second trimester D&E abortion. I wasn't thinking of it as anything special. This was routine to me. But I reached in, literally pulled out an arm or leg and got sick. You know, earlier on I described stacking up body parts on the side of the table. It's not to, gross people out, to use a simple term. When you do an abortion, you need to keep inventory. You have to make sure you get 2 arms and 2 legs and all the pieces. If you don't, your patient's going to come back infected, bleeding, or dead. So I soldiered on and finished that abortion. And I know it sounds, as I said, hard for people to believe, but I'm telling you straight up my experience. After over 1,200 abortions, first and second trimester up to 24 weeks and all the rest of it, and being very dedicated to it, for the first time in my life, I really looked. I really looked at that pile of body parts on the side of the table. And I didn't see her wonderful right to choose, and I didn't see all the money I just made. All I could see was somebody's son or daughter. And I stopped doing late-term abortions after that, and several months later stopped doing all abortions.
I want to make something very, very clear from the get go, which is I'm not completely blaming this issue on women as a whole. Now, obviously, you guys have to bear some type of responsibility for this, but I don't think this was naturally your guys' idea. I think this idea of abortion being a good thing was more implemented for you to think that it is you who should have control over your body. Not saying that you shouldn't, but I'm just saying more so in the sense of what's best for you, considering these are the same people that took an oath. But this is what I want to make very clear as a man. If my girlfriend is getting mugged, I am going to stop that guy. If somebody breaks into my home and tries to harm my family, I am going to die to defend them. If the Titanic is sinking, I am going to drown. Because that is my responsibility and duty as a man. But in this weird society this weird paradigm shift that's going on, women have made their responsibility arguably the most important thing in this world an option.
I question a society where men turn 18 and they find out very quickly, I need to obtain money, I need to obtain some sort of status, I need to obtain skills so that I can provide for a family. Like, he's thinking in the future of all the things that he needs to do to get this arbitrary family that he doesn't have in the future. Look at the other side and ask yourself, why are women looking at life the exact same way? They're looking at life the exact same way that a man would look at life, in the sense of, what do I need to do career-wise to get this amount of money to start a family? And it's all backwards. It's heart-wrenching to see these videos of babies being essentially used for profit. And we have other videos on this, but essentially the medical system is not, in modern day, at scale, not designed to provide you good quality care or good health. It's designed to harvest money off of you in any way, shape, form possible. And that includes your offspring as well. And like he had stated, how is it that we get told that we have to do this if we want to have a family and be successful in life, and we go, okay, and we do it? But women have the option to do the very thing that is needed for there to even be a future for us all. Part of what upsets me too is the lengths that Planned Parenthood and other people have went to cover up the videos that we have provided you in this documentary. And more so, a man named David DeLayden, I hope I pronounced that correctly. You have to understand that Planned Parenthood is trying its hardest to keep these videos from getting out there. And ask yourself this: if they were truthfully doing a good thing and they were truly acting in the patient's best interests, then why would they go through so great of lengths and so much money to cover it up and hide it all to begin with? And this is the truth. If you have pride in what you do, you're not scared to show the world what you do. So the very fact that they've gone through so many of these hoops to hide this information from us in the first place should show you that it's not our best interest that they have in mind, but it's our dollars that they truthfully have in mind. When you're confronted with the fact that 70 million babies are aborted across the globe every single year, you have to do the math. 70 million per year. Let's go 30 years with that. 2.1 billion. Now, obviously, that number is high. The actual number is close to 1.3 billion since 1980. You guys want to get into deeper statistics on this? I saw a statistic somewhere that essentially black people in America have aborted roughly 14 to 20 million babies since abortion was legalized in the United States in 1973. I didn't read off the word behind us. Black people have aborted over 14 to 20 million people. And if you look at the current population of black people in America today, I believe the population is somewhere around 40 million. That stat means that half of their population was killed before they ever got to take their first breath. And I know it's a trope as old as time, but if someone like Nikola Tesla was 1 in a billion, then what does it say about the billion people that have been killed by abortion since 1980? And the very important nuance and distinction to make in this argument is that we don't even believe that government is the answer to this, because it's one of those issues where if people truthfully wanted to do it, they would just figure out a way to do it. The truth to this is that it has to happen through societal enforcement. And truthfully, men need to start speaking up on this issue again, because for the past 20, 30 years, women have driven it into our brains that if you have no uterus, you have no opinion. Well, guess what? This affects all of our futures. The birth rate across the globe in Western countries is plummeting as we speak, and it's been plummeting since the 1980s, since all this became legalized in the first place. And let's go back to before. Women are taking an option in something that should be a duty. Raising the next, actually, full stop, creating the next generation of humans that are supposed to inhabit and walk this earth. And so if they made that an option, then why are we still doing all the things that we need to do to provide for a family that's never going to exist? And I'm not saying each individual person specifically, but for a large growing number of men, there's the sentiment that there's just not women who want to start families. Because if you look at the women, they're looking at the exact same thing men are looking to do. Okay, what college am I going to go to? Or what trade am I going to go to? Or what type of job profession do I want to get into? And then carry a career, and then what, turn 35 or 40 and be in a completely different body to then go start a family? And even if it is possible, is it normal? Essentially, men need to start speaking up, because this whole idea of no uterus and no opinion is a straight up lie. This affects each and every one of us. Let's be fully honest. Sex is required for life to exist. Sex exists for the purpose of life to keep existing.
Why do you think sex feels good? Do you think it's because maybe you're supposed to feel good about bringing life into existence?
Men, how we've been sold this lie is through this lie of birth control, that your woman can just take this magic pill. And women have been sold on this lie too, because they're the ones that agree to take the pill. But women essentially get told this lie that you can just take this pill for all these years and it'll just prevent you from getting pregnant, and even more so, it'll make your periods lighter and all these added benefits. It's sad and depressing that they're allowed to read you all of the benefits, but kind of shy away from all of the bad things that happen from taking these, like infertility, osteoporosis. This one is absolutely heartbreaking, but early menopause. Imagine going into menopause at 30, 25. Obviously, it's not all women or even a huge percentage, but this is the problem, is that if you have 50 million women taking birth control, what's 1% of 50 million? All of a sudden, now you got 500,000 women. That's a lot of women that have this problem. And that's just one issue. So this is a game of numbers, but essentially they sold us on this lie that, hey guys, your girl can just take this pill, and hey girls, you can just take this pill, and it's going to be all okay, and you don't have to worry about having kids. And quite literally what we have experienced the past 30, 40 years is nothing short of an experiment, I would say. In the sense of, well, if getting pregnant was the major reason for women not sleeping around, then what happens if you get rid of that? And get rid of it at a age of 13 or 14, maybe 15 or 16. Like, women are getting on birth control at very young ages nowadays. And sorry, I need to take a breather here. They're selling you on the slide that it's making your period lighter or it's making the cramps lighter. It's a lie. You're going to sit here and pretend that women for all of history have been enduring period cramps and period bleeding, and all of a sudden now in 2020 you just can't go without it. And so they've sold us the lie two different ways. They say women take this because it helps you with this, and then they say men, you can sleep around and not have to worry about getting these girls pregnant. And your boys even might high five when you tell them that a girl's on birth control. But we need to all be very, very honest with ourselves and just be very honest. If you've had sex 5,000 times in your life, 10,000 times, and you have 0 babies to show for it, what does that say about you? In the sense of sex leads to babies, the purpose of sex is for babies. If you've had sex that many times and have no babies to show for it, what does that say about you? And it's kind of, I'm not going to say it directly because we're on YouTube, but essentially you're using another person's body to get yourself off. Which I feel weird saying it that directly, but when you look at the numbers, we're having more sex than ever and less kids than ever. How could those two things be possible at the same time? It's because they've mass sold us on this lie that birth control and waiting to have kids and women joining the workforce. Let's go back before this, before Roe v. Wade even happened, and let's go back even to the early 1900s. There was not a lot of women in the workforce, and in some industries there were 0 women in the workforce. And that's another thing. All these conversations are very nuanced. We're not here to say that no women should ever be in the workforce and no woman should ever get an abortion. But the fact that they've been allowed to go unchecked as long as they have has led to the direct consequences of what we see in this world today. And the bad part about these consequences is that you can't see it yet. In the sense of, if your birth rate's been declining and been below replacement rate since 1980, you don't see what happens in 10 years or 20 years in the future from now. But it doesn't take a brainiac to look at the data and look at what's happening for the last 40 years and then look at the future and be worried. And the simple truth is, essentially, they were able to convince the population that women are equal to men, which they are not, and that women can do anything a man can do, which they cannot. And they have taken women out of the home and out of the family, more importantly, not even the home. They've taken them out of the family and put them under the thumb of another employer outside of the home. And then forced mom and dad to take their kids and drop them off at school at a place away from their home for a set number of hours every single week for a certain number of years. If that doesn't show how broken and divided the family is, then I don't know what can. Again, this is a problem that's been a culminating over many, many decades, the better part of a century even. And because we've allowed it to go this long unchecked without voicing our opinion or standing up for ourselves, we face the very grim reality that these unchecked abortions and women sleeping with whoever they want to has led to a population collapse that we might not be ready for.
We have lost touch with our past, our present, And with how we're currently moving forward, it is going to be a really dark walk. So I encourage everybody to start owning up to their own responsibility and doing their part, leaving the room cleaner than how you found it.
So with that being said, I hope everybody enjoyed this video that we put together, and there will be more to come hopefully here in the future, and we'll find some other good, interesting topics to do some deeper dives on. So if you found this interesting, leave a like, comment, subscribe, anything of the like. See ya.